Good morning. The Hearing Board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is Wednesday, February 27, 2019, and the time is just after 9:10 a.m. We are meeting in the Hearing Board room in Diamond Bar. We have several changes to the agenda today. Our Hearing Board General Meeting will be rescheduled to next week, March 5th. The case SCAQMD versus St. Francis Medical Center, case number 6133-1, for an order for abatement is rescheduled to March 14th, 2019. And Phillips 66 Company, case number 4900-105, for an emergency variance was taken off calendar for apparent compliance. That leaves us with one matter for today, which I will call now, which is the County of San Bernardino Fleet Management, case number 6070-3, for an interim variance. And who is representing the County of San Bernardino today?
Hi, my name is Lauren Finwall. Lauren, L-A-U-R-E-N. Finwall, F as in Frank, I-N-W-A-L-L, and I am the Regulatory Environmental Compliance Specialist.
Thank you, Ms. Finwall. And who is representing the Executive Officer today?
Mary Reichert on behalf of the Executive Officer.
Thank you, Ms. Reichert. Before we begin, Ms. Finwall, are you familiar with the hearing board process? I don't know if you've appeared before us before.
I have not, but I have seen many before.
Okay, great. So you're aware of the basic process, and that today, given that you are requesting an interim variance, we are going to bifurcate today's hearing into two phases, beginning with whether or not we have good cause to hear this matter in the absence of notice to the public. And for my fellow board members, just as a reminder, and also for Ms. Finwall, our guidance in good cause in this type of hearing is found in the appendix to our hearing board rules. And essentially, we need to find that there is either a violation or an imminent violation, and we'll hear, I'm sure, whether or not we're over that 200 hours yet, that the circumstances that led to the violation could not have been avoided by the petitioner, that there was diligence, reasonable diligence in filing as quickly as possible, and that to wait for a noticed hearing until, what is the date in this matter, which is set for April 3rd, would lead to some type of hardship on behalf of San Bernardino. And so with that, I'm going to ask first that anyone who wishes to testify today on either side or for the public to please rise to be sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, so I take it, Ms. Finwall, are you planning to give testimony today as well as represent the city?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So then we'll take you first in a moment, but first I'll just mark, I see we have 5 exhibits that have been given to us by the city, San Bernardino. The first, which I'll mark as Exhibit 1, it looks like an updated timeline and a statement on good cause, and we'll mark that as Exhibit number 1. It's a one-pager. We've also received a one-page document entitled IC Engine Operating Log, and we'll mark that as Exhibit number 2. We've received a 2-page, looks like an excess emissions table and calculation, and we'll mark that as Exhibit number 3. We've received a multiple-page stapled document, which starts with an email to Mr. Jeff Lover from Travis Steneland, February 15th, 10:25 a.m., and that will be Exhibit 4, that entire stapled packet. And then we have one more smaller stapled packet, which also begins with an email from Lauren Finwall, from Jeff Lover to Lauren Finwall, dated February 26, 10:14 a.m., and that will be Exhibit 5, that packet. And Ms. Finwall, if you'd like to begin with an opening statement on good cause, and if there's no objection by Ms. Reichart, we could accept that as testimony as well.
No objection.
Okay. Ms. Finwall, if you'd like a short opening statement.
Yes. The good cause for Bertha Peak, which is at facility 72511, is that power went out from the Bear Valley Electric meter to the Bertha Peak 800 megahertz tower due to a fallen tree on that power line.
Thank you. We'll come back to you, and we'll have more questions, or more evidence after that. Ms. Reichart, your opening on good cause.
The district is not opposed to a finding of good cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Very brief statements on both sides. Ms. Finwall, would you like to present any more at this time, either yourself or, well, why don't we stick with you? If you have any additional evidence you'd like to give on good cause, this would be a good time to do that. And if there's any of these documents you'd like to also introduce, not getting too much into excess emissions or anything like that.
I believe it's Exhibit 4 in the email states that the Sheriff's Department did go out on a helicopter, stating that they visually did see the fallen tree on the power line, but there are no pictures, just visual evidence from the Sheriff's Department for the County of San Bernardino, and that is all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reichart, do you have questions for Ms. Finwall?
Yes, I want to just kind of set up a little bit, kind of to understand the operations there. How do you monitor, or can you just describe the location of this, the radio tower? Or, how it's accessible or inaccessible, where exactly it is?
I'm gonna do the best that I can, but Bertha Peak is up near our Big Bear Sheriff's Department, up in Big Bear Mountain. There's very low accessibility. I believe it's very, not low terrain, but like dirt roads essentially to get up to that peak. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Okay, and you described that the Sheriff's Department had used a helicopter to determine that there was a tree down on the power lines?
Correct. So the roads they were unable to travel through that pathway up to that mountain, so the only way they could get up there due to the snow was through helicopter.
Okay, so how do you monitor whether the radio tower has power or not?
So we have a GPS system through our generator, and generally when that power's on, we're aware that the power has been cut from the main power from Bear Valley Electric was cut. So stated in the first page of Exhibit 4, it states that we tried to call Bear Valley Electric. So just with that, when the generator generally kicks on is when we know that power has been cut.
So when the generator comes on, it sends a notification to your office?
Yes,
we have it. Which is located where?
It's just a GPS, so it can be accessed anywhere, but it's sent to our generator supervisor's email, who's Jeff Laver. He's not here today, but he gets a notification from it stating that the generator has powered on, and that the only reason that generator would power on is due to the lack of power from Bear Valley Electric.
Okay, and then does it provide you ongoing notification of how long it's running?
We get a notice every hour.
If it's still on?
Yeah, if it's still running, it gives us an update on how long it's running. If it's off for any reason, what's going on, anything like that.
And so is that how you are keeping this log of hours in Exhibit number 2?
Yes.
Is based on those emails?
Yeah, so it's based off of, it's not so much, so the email is sent to him, but there's also a online client portal. So we go on that and can get up-to-date information, as well as we also have our generator mechanics go up once a month when they do testing, who can also go up and check the hours to make sure that it's corresponding to what we're being sent through that GPS.
So once a month, they do this verification, they do the testing, and then they verify that the hours are accurate that you're keeping track of?
Yes.
Since this outage has occurred, has anybody been up to the generator?
To my knowledge, I believe we've been up there twice. I know that I believe this past Friday on the 22nd, I believe they were able to get a path, and that's actually shown, I think, through Exhibit 5. They actually were able to get a snowcat up there, and they were able to somewhat clear the roads. One of the things is we're still trying to get propane up there to refuel that generator, but I believe people have been up there twice.
Okay. Can you just briefly describe the timeline of when you first found out that the generator had turned on, and then what your steps were from there?
So we can go through this, so on Thursday, on Exhibit 1, on Thursday, the 14th, we lost power at roughly 8:30 a.m. The generator had 0.17 hours of runtime for that calendar year. On Friday, February 15th, we tried to contact Bear Valley Electric multiple times for the status of the power that was lost. On Tuesday, February 19th, Bear Valley Electric stated power was restored on Sunday, February 17th at 3 p.m. and that the lines, and then on Tuesday as well, the Sheriff's Department took the helicopter up and determined that there was a fallen tree from the power line. After that, we called Bear Valley Electric, and Bear Valley Electric confirmed that from meter to tower was the responsibility of the County of San Bernardino. On Wednesday, the 20th, I believe we turned in the packet on the 21st, the hours were at 1:43. As of Friday, February 22nd, we hit 200 hours at approximately 8:40 p.m. And as of yesterday at 1:45 p.m., we're at 298.87 hours.
Okay. And so when did you first realize that you were likely going to hit these 200 hours?
I believe that was Tuesday, February 19th.
Okay. And did you begin the process of preparing your application for a variance at that time?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you exactly covered this. What type of you said it's a propane generator, correct?
Yes.
How do you get the propane up there typically?
I believe, so it's through a contractor. We contact the contractor goes up, refuels the propane through the road, and then comes back down.
And how much propane do they take up there at any one time? Or like how long will you don't know?
I know the propane, I want to say lasts anywhere, I believe around 14 days.
If you
plus or
need the
minus
other
2
witness
days.
to testify to that, you can also say that it'd be better, not now, but you can say that it'd be better for the other witness, and when it's his turn, he can answer that, so.
Yeah, it'd probably be better for the other witness.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, and could you please describe the importance of this radio tower, why it's necessary to have power?
Yeah, the importance of this radio tower is that it is for all first responder communication for Big Bear Mountain, as well as it's part of our 800 megahertz communication loop. So it is also a repeater tower, so it's going throughout all the mountains throughout the entire county of San Bernardino.
Okay. And can you describe why you were not able to fix this power line in, the time from when you first discovered that it was the tree down until now? Why it's taking longer than that?
Due to, county policy and procedure, through having to go through the process of a bid, awarding that bid, and then getting the contractor up there and following that due diligence of what the county has to do, that's why we were unable. So once we found out it was the county's responsibility, we went into the procedures of how we have to handle it by going out for bid, getting that bid back, awarding the bid, and then getting that contractor out.
And where are you in that process?
I am unaware, so I'm going to probably take that to my witness,
Okay, and he'll be able to
the
talk
witness,
about
if he's aware.
Okay. That's all the questions I have on good cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions for Ms. Finwall on good cause? Anyone? Senator?
Is this the first time you had a failure at that location?
Yes, sir.
And prior to that, you didn't know it was the county's responsibility to make the repairs?
No, sir. To my knowledge, we did not.
How long has this operation, this arrangement has been going on? For how many years?
I'm unaware. I'm going to send that to my other witness.
Thank you. Is it proper to ask the other witness at this time?
No, we'll introduce the other witness in just a moment, and then we'll go through the questions for that other witness. But at this time, anyone else have any questions for Ms. Finwall? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Lawver, is that correct? I'm sorry, do I have the wrong, okay. Mr. Donovan? He was here last time, okay. I was looking, I'm like, do I have the name? Can you introduce yourself? Just turn on your microphone, introduce your name, spell it. Please tell us your title and that you took the oath today.
Name is Craig Donovan, Craigdonovan. I'm the Fleet Superintendent for the County of San Bernardino, and I did take the oath this morning.
I'm going to ask you if you have anything to add, and if not, I'm going to turn it to Ms. Reichart to ask those questions that were remaining.
Nothing to add.
Okay, Ms. Reichart, you had questions.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan, if you could just elaborate on the delivery of the propane up there and how frequently the deliveries come and how much fuel is up there, how long that fuel will last.
I believe the capacity is 3,000 gallons for propane. It gets delivered with a standard propane truck, a two-axle truck, drives up the fire road throughout the year. It needs one delivery a year because it doesn't run that often. We got fuel up there last week on a trailer with skis. They towed it up with the snowcat to keep the site operational, and then they were able to get propane up there Monday. The fire department bulldozed the road with permission because it goes through Forest Service land, so we can't just go up and start plowing without permission from them. We got the propane truck up there and they were able to fuel the main fuel tanks. And the power company was up Monday, the contract power company was up there to start repairs, but they weren't. That was the latest we had was Tuesday, that the repair company was up surveying the damage Monday.
So how long will those 3,000 gallons last if it's operating 24 hours a day?
It would last another 2 weeks.
Okay.
I believe that's in one of the email streams. I can find it. But
Oh, that's fine. We're just trying to get a general idea.
it'll go a couple weeks. It was going to run out of fuel. That's why we brought the 600 gallons up on a.
Do you have a way of tracking that remotely, the amount of fuel that's in there?
No.
No, so
We know I've calculated run hours depend how much fuel was to start with, how many
You
hours
were able
it
to
ran.
estimate that you knew the fuel was getting low?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you give me the status of the bidding process for repairing the power lines?
I believe that was taken care of immediately. I think the process is they have 3 contractors. They find out which one's available. It doesn't have to go through a formal bid process and all that. ISD handles that part of it because it's their responsibility.
What's ISD?
Internal Services Department. It's the people that operate the radio.
Okay.
Fleet Management operates the generator, so we're technically the holder of the permit, but the generator is for the radio site, so they're our customer, so to speak, internally within the county.
Yeah. So, so you believe that they are in the process of contacting 3 companies?
That's already been done.
That's already been done?
Yes.
And then, when do you estimate that bid that process will be completed and a contract will be selected?
That's already happened last week.
Oh, so
as
they've
far
already
as I know.
selected a
The
contractor.
contractor in Exhibit 5, page 3, it gets down to where they were talking about the propane delivery, and at the bottom of the page, looks like one of the high voltage wires is either broken or separated from the cross arm down slope a little bit from the top. Repair company will go after they get in to survey on Monday. This was on February 24th.
Okay. And do you currently have an estimate of how long that repair work will take?
No, we didn't get that information from the repair company yet.
But at this point, regardless of how quickly the repairs can occur, you will be out of compliance for the remainder of the year because you have hit your 200-hour limit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Senator, I think you had a question that you wanted to ask Mr. Donovan. Did you want to begin with that?
About the length of time you've had this arrangement where you're providing backup power at this location.
Repeat the first part of the question, please.
The length of time that we've had this process, ICE is a backup for this location.
This generator's probably at least 10 years old. I'm not sure how long the site has been up there with the generator, but at least 10 years to my knowledge.
How long have you worked for that
I've worked for the county for 4 years.
for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When, at the very beginning, wouldn't the county be aware, or should they have been aware, that they would be responsible for maintaining that system?
I'm not following your question, sir.
Help him.
Basically, what he's saying is, should we have been aware that between the meter to the tower should have been ours? Like, how, were we?
We were aware of that. On Exhibit 1, it says that. The way Lauren worded it didn't. We were aware that from the meter to the generator site, it's our responsibility to repair the lines. Is that the question?
Yeah, then what have you done in that, during the interim to repair the lines? What action have you taken?
There's a contractor that's been hired to go up and do the repairs on the lines, an electrical contractor.
At what point in time was the contractor hired?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure. I believe last week they went through that process and
What was
hired
the time
somebody.
delay, if any at all? From
Not
the time that
sure.
the failure occurred and the time you decided that it was your responsibility, and then you hired a contractor?
I'm not sure.
You're in charge of the operation, aren't you?
Not for that part of it, no.
Who is?
The Internal Services Department. They handle the contracting for that power line. We have to go up and survey the damage. We couldn't get up there when it first happened. That's why we flew the helicopter up. And then we had to, the whole mountain was covered in snow. So we had to go up and find out if the power line, if the power lines were damaged or what the problem was before we could do it, move to the next process.
So it's still not done yet, is that correct?
Correct,
And you're adding more hours on this equipment?
correct.
Thank you.
I'm just going to go off the record for a moment. I think people need to be told outside to keep down. If you don't mind, I don't mind doing it if you, we'll go off the record. Thank you. When we last took a break, we were still asking questions of Mr. Donovan. I believe the Senator was finished with your questions. Anyone else have questions? Mr. Balagopalan.
Mr. Donovan, I think the last time you were here, there's another repeater at Arrowbear. So this is the other repeater giving a better coverage for the area?
Yes, sir, it's a part of a series of repeaters that goes around the county.
Yeah, and this covers, so how many repeaters do you have do you know?
I do not know how many they have. This effectively works the same as the Keller Peak that we discussed last time, where the radio tower covers the immediate vicinity, line of sight, so to speak, and then the microwave tower is part of the repeater that goes around the county for the 800 megahertz communications.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Ms. Burt.
I was just trying to figure out how to ask this question a little bit differently than it had already been asked. So, but I'm reading your timeline, and you were aware on the 19th, because of the sheriffs flying over in helicopter, about what had happened. There's nothing, what could have been done, do you know, if you had known any sooner than what you knew on the 19th? Would that have changed any of your processes? Could you have gotten started sooner?
No, the only way we could get up there on the 19th was with the helicopter, because we couldn't even get to the base of the mountain from San Bernardino that week. That was during the midst of the storm.
Okay. So the fact that you, also on Exhibit 1, you have in bullet number 1, states that the repairs will most likely be completed the week of 2/25, which is this week. And I believe you now said that you don't know when they will be completed. Is that correct?
Both are correct. We're anticipating that they'll be done this week, but I can't say that they will.
Okay.
That's our anticipation, and it's a fairly simple as those jobs go. It's not devastating like the pictures we had from Keller where the pole actually got knocked down. Okay. We believe a tree fell on the lines and broke the lines, so I think they just need to restring the lines. But I haven't been up there and I haven't seen the pictures of it, but that's...
Okay, so what is that estimate of completion based on?
The contractor and...
The contractor has instructed you that it'll be done. Okay.
And what they witnessed as the damage up there.
Okay.
Said it's not severe as the pictures we brought for the Keller where the poles were actually knocked down. We believe it's just the lines that are knocked down for this one.
Okay, thank you.
Is it the city of San Bernardino's usual course to hire a different contractor each time there is a particular need or issue? Or I just was wondering why you needed to first go through the process of hiring.
I can't answer. It's the county, not the city.
I'm sorry, the county.
I'm not sure what their process is. We can certainly find out. I'm not sure what their process for the contractor for that is. I know it happened quickly once we found out there was damage to the lines.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I thought your testimony was a moment ago that you have 3 contractors that are basically on standby to accommodate any repairs.
I believe that's the way the system works, but I'm not sure how exactly if that's how they do that.
Oh.
We have contracted contractors for these other issues that work like that.
Okay, so you don't know that you have them on call, basically. You just, that's what you're guessing.
I'm guessing, yes.
Okay.
Maybe the problem, I'm guessing that it's pre-qualified, you have pre-qualified contractors, so any one of them, if they're available, they can do the job, so because they've already been pre-qualified earlier, is that your
Yes,
assumption?
for other situations, we have those contractors available for gates or doors or things like that that need to be immediately done. We can call on one of those contractors to work. I'm assuming that's what they did here, but I can't, to answer your question, I can't say that that's exactly what they did.
What they did. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Lerner had a question.
Oh, okay. Just a question about the fuel that's up there, the propane. Had any of that propane been used prior to this event? What I'm asking is, time is going and you already have almost 300 hours of use. I don't know what 14 times 24 adds up to, but I'm just very concerned that is there enough fuel up there to keep that engine going until the repairs are made?
Yes, sir, we were able to get the trailer up with the 600 gallons of fuel, and then the propane truck was able to get up there this Tuesday. The propane truck was able to drive up and fuel the main fuel tank.
My concern was I looked at my iPhone and I noticed that it's going to rain this weekend in LA, which means that there might be snow and another snowstorm up in the mountains. That was the reason for the question. Do they have any estimated time when it might be completed?
We're hoping to get they're hoping to get the repairs to the electrical to the commercial power done this week. But I haven't had an update this morning on what their status is.
When you mean this week, you mean Friday, at the end of Friday? I'm sorry, at the end of Friday?
Yes,
Wonderful, that'd be great. Thank you.
For your numbers, you get 336, 14 times 24.
Are you showing off your calculating skills? Anyone else have any questions for either Mr. Donovan or Ms. Finwall? Ms. Finwall, any other evidence or testimony you'd like to give on good cause at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reichart, would you like to present anyone on good cause?
No one on good cause, thank you.
Okay. Then at this time, Ms. Finwall, would you like to make a brief closing statement at all on good cause? It's up to you if you'd like to.
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Reichart, any closing statement on good cause?
Just the district is not opposed to a finding of good cause, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to begin the discussion on good cause? Anyone wish to begin? Mr. Balagopalan.
Yeah, I think in the matter of County Sacramento Fleet Management Case Number 6073, I think we can find.
Wait, we're not ready for
Oh,
a
no.
motion. Yeah, we just
Motion,
need,
yeah.
we need to deliberate
Discussion, sorry.
first.
No, I think we can find good cause. I think when they were alerted, there was, the engine had started up, then they tried to they contacted the the power company, Bear Valley Electric, to find out what's going on. And then when they realized that they probably will exceed the 200 hours, they filed, I believe, in a timely manner on the 19th, they petitioned because they knew at that point when they filed, they didn't exceed the 200 hours, but they knew they would exceed the 200 hours because of the logistics and getting the lines back up again. So I think they filed the petition in a timely manner, and I think we can find good cause. You know, it's beyond their control. What happened, it's nature taking its course, and so it's beyond their control.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to add to the discussion? I mean, I would just add, obviously, this is a very, just like the one we heard last, this is a very important tower, both for first responders and also as the repeater tower in a series of repeater towers. And so if we were to wait until a noticed hearing, there would be, since they are now over the 200 hours, could not operate the generator and thus could not operate the tower, that would be significant harm to the people of the county of San Bernardino. Ms. Bird.
And I just wanted to say that the location is a remote location, so it's if we were concerned about the impact of whatever pollutants might be produced as a result of the running, that the benefit of having it run for the emergency services outweighs the hazard to the community.
Anyone else? Mr. Balagopalan, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, thank you. In the case of County of San Bernardino Fleet Management Case Number 6070-3, I think we can find good cause, and I'll leave it at that.
To hold a hearing?
To hold the To hold the hearing, yes. In the absence of a public notice.
Thank you. Okay. Any other? Okay. And I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Senator, how do you vote? Dr. Lerner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd, how do you
Yes.
vote? I vote yes, and Mr. Balagopalan.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes 5-0, and so we will move into Phase 2 of our bifurcated hearing, which is, like any other hearing, we're going to move into the 6 findings for a variance in order to grant the interim variance until a regular variance hearing can be heard in April. And the first thing I'd like to ask of Ms. Finwall and Ms. Reichart is whether or not you would like to incorporate all of the evidence and testimony that we heard in the first part of this hearing.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I assume there was no objection to that. And so we'll incorporate all of that. And I think Ms. Finwall, well, let me ask you, would you like to give an opening on the 6 findings? Yes, Senator. We did not put them in evidence before we found good cause, but we can put them in evidence now. Ms. Reichart, is there any objection to putting exhibits 1 through 5 in evidence?
No objection.
Okay, then they are, 1 through 5 are in evidence. And Ms. Finwall, if you would like to make an opening statement on the 6 findings for a variance, you can do so now.
Thank you very much. So on Exhibit 1, I'm going to be going off of that with a good cause. Currently, the hours for the emergency generator for 2019 are at 298.87 hours. The repair lines will most likely be completed this week of 2/25/19, and as of 2/22/19, the emergency generator at Bertha Peak reached 200 hours. The circumstances for this variance is that a tree fell on that power line. This power line connects the Bear Valley electric meter to the 800 megahertz radio tower. Since no power is being supplied to the 800 megahertz radio tower, the emergency generator is running to supply that power. The County of San Bernardino Fleet Management has done their due diligence by applying for this variance on 2/21, that Thursday, last Thursday, before we went over that 200 emergency hours. The consequence for this variance being denied is that the communication for first responders will be down, as well as the repeater tower for the communication loop for all 800 megahertz communications for the entire county of San Bernardino. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reichart, any opening?
Thank you. Subject to the testimony presented and compliance with the proposed conditions, which I'll present to the board now, the district is not opposed to a granting of this variance. Additionally, the district was the one that calculated the excess emissions, and so I have a simplified sheet of the excess emissions that I'll present as well.
Okay. So that exhibit still is an exhibit of the one we have, but this is a different exhibit. Okay. Thank you. And I think, Ms. Finwall, I'm going to turn it over to you, and once we have these marked and handed out to the board. And I think all we are missing pretty much are some of the later findings, which would include excess emissions, and so that we can balance that versus the harm to the county should we not grant a variance today, and monitoring and reduction of any of those excess emissions to the maximum extent feasible. I think that's really what we have left. So we've received 2 exhibits from the district. One is the proposed interim variance conditions, and we'll mark that as Exhibit A as an apple. And we have an excess emissions calculation by the district, and we will mark that as Exhibit B as in boy. And with that, I will turn, Ms. Finwall, whether it's you or Mr. Donovan, just for that additional testimony at this time.
So we unfortunately cannot control what excess emissions will be happening. The emergency generator only turns on when the power that is being supplied from the Bear Valley electric meter is off. So those are going to be the only times that this generator is running, is only in times of an emergency when that power is cut.
Would you like to have the district, I know you have exhibit number 3, would you prefer to have the district introduce exhibit B and discuss those excess emissions?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll just ask, Ms. Rucker, do you have any questions on the testimony that Ms. Finwall gave before we do that?
I just want to clarify, or to ask, have you ever had a chance to review the conditions that the district proposed?
Exhibit A?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And do you agree to these conditions?
Would this be where we would ask for Rule 303M?
No. Well, yeah, you can discuss that, and if you want to address that maybe on your closing statement.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just wanted to confirm that you'll be able to comply with the testing and maintenance requirement of no more than 1 hour per month.
Yes.
And then the only other time it would be operated is in times of an emergency when there's no power to the radio tower.
Correct.
And you have no other access or ability to power the radio tower other than with this generator.
Correct.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, board members, does anyone have questions for Ms. Finwall on that limited testimony? Mr. Balagopalan?
Sorry. On the excess emission calculation, Exhibit B, and it was also in your attachment that you provided, I think it's the same. I did notice that it's indicating there's no emissions of oxides of nitrogen or PM10 or SOx. Have you talked to when you burn natural gas, the products of combustion are there. I don't know if this is a rounding error, showing it 0. So, and are you aware of the emission factors that results from the combustion of propane?
I am not, no.
None, so I think we can, ask the district. The other, just to clarify the excess emission, so once you exceed the 200 hours, anything beyond that is considered excess, and you will report the number of hours that exceeded 200 and calculate the fees accordingly. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Ms. Finwall before we turn it over to Ms. Reichart? Okay, then we're going to do that. Ms. Finwall, with regard to your request, with regard to the waiver or reduction of excess emission fees, we will take that at the end before we deliberate, and just so you know, so that you are prepared to address it in your closing, we have discretionary powers to either limit or excuse those fees if it's an unreasonable hardship or otherwise inequitable. So if you can address one at that time, address one of those, so we understand what the argument would be. Ms. Reichart, you may introduce your witness.
Thank you. The district calls Nabil Gabriel. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Nabil Gabriel, senior engineer with the district.
And can you spell your name for the record?
Nabil, N-A-B-I-L, Gabriel. Okay. Nabil, N-A-B-I-L, Gabriel, G like in George, O-B like in boy, R-I-A-L.
And could you repeat your position with the district?
Senior engineer with the district.
Thank you. And did you take the oath?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So if you'd please refer to Exhibit B, could you please just describe the calculation of excess emissions, what it's based on, and if you heard Mr. Balagopalan's question regarding some of the zeros that are on here as well.
Okay, this emission factor was taken from the original application, was processed in 2008, and we got the emission factor pound or gram per hour and multiplied by 24 hours, and we got the excess emission per day.
Okay, and can you do you have any context to explain why I believe it was the NOx and the PM10 maybe that he was concerned about
Yes, I
Why
think
it's at zero?
the engineer put the zero because it's propane, it's natural gas, it's clean fuel, and maybe we did not have a emission factor at that time.
So do you think there actually would be some NOx and PM emissions?
It's gonna be close to zero, yes.
It'll be
But-
close to zero. But, okay, so there will be some, but it will be very close to
Because
zero.
also the IC engine is 107 horsepower. It's very small. And the emission factor was taken from the district BACT, and I don't think it was a higher number. So calculation is gonna be close to zero, but we can check again and find out if there is emission factor for NOx and SOx. For sure, SOx it doesn't, but NOx it's gonna be a lot lower, closer to zero. But we can check that and find out.
And then the dollars per ton value that's taken from Rule 303, is that correct?
Yes, that's from the emission factor from application was processed in '08.
Okay. All right, no further questions on this.
Ms. Finwall, do you have any questions on that?
I do not.
Okay. Board members, any questions? Mr. Balagopalan?
So, Mr. Gabriel, so there are, whenever you burn fuel, there are products of combustion, correct? And so there will be oxides of nitrogen, even though it'll be minimal in this case because it's a clean fuel, being propane. But you referred to a previous application which may not have calculated that, but where would you go to find the source of this emission factor now, knowing that there are products of combustion? And
We can go to the district annual emission fee and find out what the emission factor for it.
oh,
But what I mean, when we processed this application in '08, the engineer used that emission factor. That's why estimated the excess emission based on that emission factor.
right, but it was based on a previous application.
Not, I mean, that's the permit to operate.
Right, yeah. But as you indicated, you can go to the annual emission report, which has published emission factors, use this emission factors and list it. It's just that when you see zero, it's just not representative, even though it may be a minimal amount, but showing zero means there's nothing, you know.
Sure,
So I
yeah,
think
we
listing,
can go
even if it's
to-
0.001 or whatever, and even though it'll calculate to be less than the minimum fee, just to be accurate and representative, it's proper to show some emissions coming from those, from propane. That's what I'm
Sure,
getting at.
we can do that, but we didn't proceed because the total emission.
No, I agree, yeah, but it's just that when it shows, it implies there's nothing, there's zero.
Okay, we can establish the emission factor for propane, and we provide it to the applicant.
Thank you.
Does the board want us to perform that calculation on a break and come back, or?
No, I think if they provide it, later to the facility, that should be fine. I think it'll take some time for the engineer to go find it and, get the representative emission factor and redo the. And that's, I don't know if it's appropriate, if they should do it now. I mean, regardless, I think it's going to be less than the minimum, so I'm not worried because we're not, I think it'll calculate out to be less than the minimum fee, so it's not going to make the impact on the actual fee that they have to pay. But I think just to be correct, or factually correct, then we should have those numbers. So I think if it's done afterwards, it's okay with, if the board agrees.
I think that if it affects your ability to make any of the findings, that we should have it done now, and otherwise it can be done later.
Yeah, I don't think it'll affect making the findings.
Okay. Any other questions from any board members? Okay. I assume that was the only witness you wish to
Yes.
introduce. Okay. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Finwall if you'd like to make any closing statement, including, at this time, I think it's appropriate to explain your position on excess emissions fees and the waiver.
Yes, thank you. So after everything that's been presented, we'd also like to present for Rule 303, Part M. and that we believe that it's inequitable for us to pay the fee, as we do have a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers to make sure that we're maintaining their money as well as possible, and that we're keeping this tower operational for first responder communication for the safety of the community of the County of San Bernardino. Thank you.
And part of that has to do with the fact that these excess emission fees are probably smaller than the minimum that would have to be paid. Do you know that?
Yes.
Okay. So then the minimum would apply.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Reichart, any closing?
Yes, thank you. Just to briefly address your last point, on this chart, the last column actually describes the dollar amount and not take into account any additional very minimal NOx emissions, but the cost for a full 24-hour day based on the excess emission calculations would be $9.69. So the minimum of $195 and change would apply as the per Rule 303. The subject to compliance with the proposed conditions, the district is not opposed to the finding of to the granting of this variance, and the district has no position on the excess emission fee waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, what we'll do is first we will take discussion and a motion on the actual variance. And even if we later decide, then we will take up the question of the fee waiver. And even if we take that up after and leave in condition number 3, if there are no fees because they've been waived, it just simply not apply. Okay, so board members, with that, and would anyone wish to begin discussion with regard to the merits of the interim variance? And if not, I can do so. Mr. Balagopalan, did you want to? Why don't you go ahead and start with
Yeah,
this?
no, I think we can make the 6 findings for granting an interim variance, that they will be in violation of the permit condition and that they have exceeded the 200 hours limit for emergency operation of the engine, but it was beyond their reasonable control as an act of nature, and the down power lines, and they couldn't reasonably get to the site and get the lines back onto and have and get it running, have the electricity going for the tower, and so they still have. I think they took all the practical steps they need to do, getting a contractor out there, trying to assess the situation and trying to get the repairs done as soon as possible. I think we had testimony, they hopefully can get it done by the end of the week, if not, so that's good. So I think the closing would be without a corresponding benefit, reducing contamination. They have, there's really nothing they can do as far as curtailing operation because it's a essential operation for the emergency response official. So that's not. I think they have in the condition variance condition they've agreed to once the power's back on, then they'll go back to the normal testing routine, which is not more than 1 hour a month. So, and I think they will quantify the emissions during the time and report the emissions based on the hopefully the revised emission factors that the district submits to the facility.
Thank you. I don't have much to add to that, other than just to note, I could make the findings anyway, but just to note for the record that we're talking about a public agency, the County of San Bernardino, and I do believe that requiring compliance, which means the shutdown and not using for the entire year this generator, would certainly impose an unreasonable burden on an essential public service, since it's for first responders, and we usually take that into account also in making the findings. Anyone else have anything to add or any other thoughts? Mr. Balagopalan, would you like to make a motion, and if there's anything that I would have to add, I'll just add it afterwards.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that in the case of case number 6070-3, that we make the finding for good, not good, to issue interim variance. And then they meet all the 6 findings required to make, to grant the variance.
And I'm going to second the motion to grant the interim variance, and I'm going to add that it is for the facility, the tower at Bertha Peak and the engine at Bertha Peak and Big Bear, that this interim variance would start today and would run for 90 days or until we can have a hearing in this matter for a regular variance, which is currently scheduled for April 3rd, and that it is for the generator that is application permit number F96434, as indicated on page 2, item 6 of the petition, and it is from Rule 203B of the district, with having to do with permit condition number 5 with regard to the 200 emergency hour limit runtime for that engine. First of all, let me just stop there. Do you accept that as part of your motion, Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes, thank you for adding that.
And,
I think
okay.
the one
Please.
other item is the, on the variance condition, we didn't say, when the date when these will, when they have to report the excess emission, so.
Let me first say you did not incorporate, so you need to incorporate the interim variance conditions as proposed in Exhibit A. And we can put a date. We're going to take up the question of whether they will have to pay those fees, but what is, I think that my suggestion would be the date of April 3rd, 2019, which is the date we will hear this case for a regular variance.
Oh, I see, and then, okay. Yeah, I think that, because anything now above the 200 till the end of the year is considered excess emission, but you're right, this is an interim variance, so it's up until the date of the regular variance, and then from the condition, the regular variance can address the rest of the year.
Okay, so April 3rd will be
April 3rd, yes.
the date we will put on there? Okay, so April 3rd, 2019 would be added to Exhibit A. And Mr. Balagopalan, what are the anticipated excess emissions? I think that's the last thing we need to mention.
Based on what's provided in Exhibit B, and I will, the emissions are going to be low, but I'm having difficulty saying there's no NOx or SOx, so PM10 emission, because, it was not, the emission factor is not calculated.
May I suggest that they are to be determined based on Exhibit B, the chart, and to note that for NOx, PM10, and SOx, while it indicates 0, they are close to 0.
And I think the calculated excess emission will be below the limit, so.
Do you mean below that's a different issue
Okay.
as to how much they would have to pay in excess emission fees. But just to note for the motion that the excess emissions would be 0.3 pounds per hour of CO, 0.13 pounds per hour of VOC, and close to 0 pounds per hour of NOx, PM10, and SOx. Would you agree with that as the
Yes.
motion? Okay. And as I said, I second that motion. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Senator?
NOx and SOx is essentially zero. Essentially zero, and therefore is not a factor to be considered in the fee.
We're not discussing the fee. The fee is not on the table at this moment.
Not going to be significantly considered at this time, then.
No, we do not figure the fee.
NOx.
The fee is done through a different process.
Anyway, NOx and SOx is essentially zero.
I guess We could debate.
Well, let's step out of this. Are we back to deliberations? Because.
No, okay, yeah.
Because if we want to talk about it being close to zero, I think that comes into play when we discussed whether or not in finding number 3, the closing or taking would be without a corresponding benefit.
No.
Okay. Any discussion, though, on the motion that's on the table? Okay. Senator, how do you vote then on that? Yes. And Dr. Lerner?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 5-0. The interim variance is granted, as discussed. And now, we just need to take up the final request, which is the request pursuant to District Rule 303M, which is our discretionary powers to either waive all or any portion of the fees. And I assume this is for excess emission fees?
Yes.
Okay, just for excess emission fees. And the argument was, I believe, falling under otherwise inequitable. I don't believe, given the numbers we're talking about, well, we don't know. It could be an unreasonable hardship, say it goes down for the rest of the year. It would be, I would say it would be quite a hardship. But I think it falls more, board members, I think it falls more under otherwise inequitable. I know Ms. Finwall mentioned the fact that this is a public agency. It certainly, we did find it was well beyond their reasonable control. This has to do with a very inaccessible but very important tower, and the power supply is clearly subject to extreme weather and then an inability to get up there to fix it quickly. And this backup generator is simply extremely important. And so it certainly, I mean, it's not only beyond their reasonable control, it's well beyond their reasonable control. And so when you look at Exhibit, well, I'm looking at 3, but if you look at Exhibit B, and as Ms. Reichart pointed out, that final column is the excess emission fees that would apply should this, for every hour, is that for every hour, or is that for every?
No, day, 24-hour day.
For every day. So even if in an entire day, this generator is run, we're talking about $9 and change at most for VOCs, in total. And yet it would be $195 minimum under,
192.36.
is it 192?
192.36.
Okay. Yes, 192.36 under Section 303F. And I would have to say that for all those reasons, I find it to fall under the otherwise inequitable, and it would be my position that we should waive it. Ms. Byrd?
I was going to say that since it is our discretion, that I would take the approach of actually having them pay for excess emissions based on the emissions that were actually emitted, which would be that $9.89 a day, because that would come out to about $3,000 for the rest of the year if they ran it every day 24/7. And I don't expect that it's going to run every day 24/7. And so because that's my approach to the hardship or otherwise inequitable, I wouldn't have them pay for the entire $192 per day, but because there are excess emissions, I think that having a fee for that minimal amount would be reasonable, that they pay some portion. So that would be my suggestion.
I think that's a very good suggestion, especially because the excess fee amounts are, I assume, calculated by the district to apply to the amount of pollution, and so it certainly is proportionate, and thus deletes the unreasonable burden. Anyone else? Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes, I also add that they do have a engine that's not using diesel fuel, they're using propane, so it's a cleaner fuel. So I think, so the emissions are much lower than if they were burning diesel fuel. So I think so it's not a significant impact to the community and so forth from those emissions.
Good point. Anyone else have any thoughts on excess emission fees? Senator?
correct, the county of San Bernardino is a public agency,
Correct.
and so is SCAQMD. And we're here burning our lights and staff. What we've spent today in terms of personnel, the amount of money they're asking for doesn't come close to satisfying that financial requirement. It's not even close. So for a small amount of money, you get to make your contribution as well, as far as I'm concerned. If you want to put a cap on the number of days, fine. But this $9 a day, totally insignificant. I'm surprised you made the request.
If, Senator, if they did not make the request, it would not be $9 a day. It would be $192 a day because there's a minimum amount that applies. So if the calculated emissions are below the minimum daily emissions, that daily amount would apply.
You can put a cap on it. I think, Ms. Byrd, you had a motion.
She has not, but she had a very good suggestion.
What was it? Will you repeat it, please?
My recommendation was because there is a table in Rule 303, I think it's Table 1, and it's based on the actual amount of the emission, be it, however many pounds, and it's based, there's a fee associated with every pound or every ton, every ton. And so I was just recommending that we have them pay the portion associated with the actual emission, not just every day that they have any emission, if that makes sense.
So apply the $9 per day
So it'd be,
as opposed to the $192.
$92 a day.
That's part of your motion?
She's
I
not made a
haven't
motion
one
yet. But if we're done with discussion, I think
No,
Mr.
I think as
Valagopoulos-
part of the discussion, I think if we are doing that, then it would be proper to get the accurate emissions and the dollar amount, before we proceed with that, if we're going to make that motion, because $9.68 is not the correct amount, and it might be $10.05, whatever it is,
Well,
I
then
think you said to be determined for emissions, didn't you?
Yes, and if Ms. Byrd, if it pleases you, if you make a motion, as you were considering making that motion, if you would add to the motion that it would be actual excess emission fees, also based on the correct, not zero, but close to zero emission factor for for CO, not CO, for NOx, PM10, and SOx. So that would cover, that would cover Mr. Valagopoulos' issue.
So you might have to pay an extra $1 a day.
Okay, with that, oh, Dr. Lerner, you had some.
Before we decide to vote on this arcane.
We did not make a motion, no motion.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was going to ask, what is the motion? Because we've had a lot of discussion, but the motion hasn't been brought up, so.
No, I was going to call for a motion and see if Ms. Byrd would like to make a motion.
Sure. Let's put the glasses on. In the matter of, let's see, County of San Bernardino case 6070-1 and their request for.
-3, I think.
I was -3, excuse me. And their request, I didn't have the glasses all the way up yet. And their request to have their fees adjusted or /waived, I recommend, or I move that we require the payment of excess emissions fees based on Table 1 in Rule 303, and that will take into account all excess emissions, including those that maybe had not been defined in the earlier petition, and that they will be based on that tonnage value and, let's see, and not on the minimum per day. So whatever the excess emissions fee will be for each one of the pollutants, excess emissions pollutants, it will be based on Table 1 and not on $192, which is minimum per day.
Is there a second?
I Second it.
Dr. Lerner seconds. Is there a discussion on that motion? I think it's clear, as clear as it could be stated. Senator, how do you vote? Senator votes yes. I vote yes. Mr. Balagopalan,
Yes.
Dr. Lerner votes,
Yes.
and Ms. Byrd votes.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Excess emissions will be based on actual emissions as opposed to the minimum daily. And then we will see you all back for the regular variance hearing on April 3rd. Thank you very much. Board members, any other business before we adjourn for the day? Seeing none, we are adjourned.